Hello there. Welcome to another session of Digital Slide Review and Sign Out. I'm Dr. Louis Hassel, coming to you from the campus of the University of Oklahoma Health Sciences Center, part of OU Health. Our program today is Surgical Pathology Slide Review and comes a little bit from a more soft tissue side of things, perhaps even more appropriately called a derm path. Now, I am not a dermatopathologist, but this case struck me as being sufficiently unique and singular and fairly straightforward that I might be able to add a little bit of light and provide an interesting insight into your experience. The patient is an older gentleman who spent some time in the woods and following return from his camping hunting, noted that he had a persistent itchy skin mass. And as he related to his clinician, it was right at the point where he had removed a tick. Well, he actually had brought the tick in, and it looked something like this. He had been to the western woods in North America, and that's where this particular tick, the so-called wood tick, Dermacenter andersoni, is most frequently encountered. The female here on the right and the male on the left. So there was no mystery as to what the histology might show here, but I think it is a nice illustration of this process fully developed. As you can see here, we have an infiltrate that is both involving the superficial vessels and very prominent quite deeply, as well as this little crater here where the mouth parts of the tick were inserted. So we'll take a look here at this particular cut. And as we might expect, this inflammatory infiltrate involves the perivascular structures. Here you see rather tight process, and it's got a fair number of chronic inflammatory cells in it. Additionally, as would be expected with an arthropod reaction, we can also see on higher magnification that there are a really large number of eosinophils associated with this as well in the inflammatory infiltrate. Now, of note is also that many of these were somewhat degranulated and so forth. So that's the expected appearance. One of the other features that was somewhat striking here, and I'll maybe have to look a little further to see if we can find it, the area that I recall seeing those parts, is we actually had a little bit of potentially residual tick mouth parts. Don't see it here. Let's see if we can find it here on this last cut over here. Yes, I think this is where it is. And it's certainly not unusual to see a superficial and deep inflammatory reaction in a arthropod insult. What is unusual is to see this degree of cutaneous necrosis, and to, as we have here, actually find little bits of residual foreign material or mouth parts associated with this reaction. So this is a fairly vigorous and dense inflammatory process associated with this arthropod. Now, other insects that may be a little bit less vigorous may not have quite so dramatic findings. So in this particular situation, we see again, we have a superficial and to some degree deep inflammatory infiltrate. The process is mixed lymphohistiocytic with some admixed eosinophils in here, as we can see. Here's a few here. And there are some interspersed in the in between the collagen as well. And so this might be more characteristic of a more finely smaller gauge needle, if you will, from the arthropod. But we can see a little bit of the so-called flame reaction that these types of insults can induce with these little sort of micro abscess type changes amidst the inflammatory process as well. So two similar examples of the same type of reaction to the foreign introduction of the arthropod mouth parts to take a blood meal and again produce this little flame type of reaction. Now, ticks carry in particular the potential for transmitting other diseases, and so it's important to just remember how broad and widespread those disorders can be. And so this taken conveniently from Wikipedia shows some of the bacterial infections that can be transmitted by various tick bites, including tularemia, Lyme disease, ehrlichiosis, and so forth, depending on whether they're rickettsia, spirochetes, or thiotrichales, as well as viral infections and various protozoal infections such as babesiosis. So anytime you encounter a tick bite, it's always good to remember where you are, what the prevalence of these various other diseases may be in your particular area, and give some consideration to those possibilities. As you can see, there are several different genuses of ticks that can be involved with these different disorders. Not all of them carry all of these diseases, but being aware of what is possible in your particular associated geography is highly pertinent. This is a very useful interactive table because it will link you to each of the various disorders relative to the different genuses of diseases or ticks that can be involved with these disorders. So thank you to Wikipedia. So to sort of summarize then, our final sign out today is a cutaneous arthropod reaction with retained foreign material secondary to secondary ulceration and impetiginization. And this, of course, secondary to tick bite with Dermacenter andersoni. So that's our case for today. Appreciate you spending some time with us. Please subscribe and share any comments you've had with aggressive or non-aggressive arthropod reactions and maybe some of the differential considerations you've had to struggle with at times. We appreciate your participation in our channel and hope that this continues to provide use and value to you in your teaching and learning of pathology. And so until next time, thanks so much for joining me.